Hello fellow compounders, welcome back. Today we'll embark in a deep dive into the three most common valuation tools: the PE ratio, the price earnings to growth ratio, PEG, and the discounted cash flow, or DCF. This video is for educational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. I am not your financial advisor and you are responsible for your own financial decisions. Let's get started. What's the PE ratio? The price to earnings ratio, or PE ratio, is a very common metric in equity analysis. It tells us how much investors are willing to pay for a dollar of a company's earnings. It provides us with a way to compare investments across the board. PE is equal to the stock price divided by the earnings per share. For example, let's say that Apple is trading at $168 per share and it has earnings per share of $6. That means that it has a PE ratio of 28. That is the price of $168 divided by $6 in earnings per share. That equals 28. Now let's look at Microsoft, which is in the same industry. Let's say that Microsoft is trading at $340 per share and it has earnings per share of $10. That means that the PE ratio is 34. That is the price of $340 divided by $10 in earnings. Once we have the PE, we can gauge the stock's relative valuation. We see that Apple is trading at a PE of 28, while Microsoft is trading at a PE of 34. If we look at both on a pure PE basis, it would seem that Microsoft is more expensive than Apple. People are willing to pay $34 for $1 of Microsoft earnings versus $28 for $1 of Apple's earnings. PEs show you relative value. Let me take you one step further. If we take the inverse of PE, that means E over P, this is what we call the earnings yield. If we take the 10-year US Treasury that is paying around 5%, the 5% would be its earnings yield. We can express the earnings yield as a PE ratio by taking the inverse. That is taking 1 over the earnings yield, which is as follows. PE is equal to 1 divided by earnings yield. So the PE of the 10-year US Treasury would be 1 divided by 5%, or 0.5. That equals 20. Now let's compare the 10-year US Treasury versus Apple and versus Microsoft's PE. The US Treasury's PE is equal to 20, or the equivalent of an earnings yield of 5%. Apple is trading at a 28 PE, or an earnings yield of 3.57%. And Microsoft is trading at a 34 PE, or an earnings yield of 2.94%. Remember, it's not just about the numbers. The context is key. We know that the US Treasury is a very safe long-term investment. As long as the United States is standing, you will get your money back in 10 years and will have received a 5% annual return. However, some investors are willing to buy Apple at a 28 PE because they believe that over 10 years, Apple earnings will grow at a rate higher than the US Treasury, which, by the way, is 0. The US Treasury growth of its earnings is 0 because it's always going to pay you 5%. The 10-year US Treasury pays a flat 5%, no earnings growth, and the interest doesn't change. The same thing goes for Microsoft. Investors are willing to pay more for Microsoft than Apple. That is 34 PE versus a 28 PE. This is probably because Microsoft's cloud business and AI business are growing at a faster rate than Apple's iPhone sales. In a static world where businesses don't grow, if I were to base my investment decision purely on PE, the rational purchase, given the information that we just saw, would be to buy the US Treasury, the 10-year US Treasury. If there's no growth for Apple and Microsoft, why would I pay more for stocks that carry more risk than the 10-year US Treasury? Now we know the limitation of PE ratios. They don't account for the growth of the businesses, and one-time earnings spikes or drops can distort them. So while PEs are great starting points, we'll have to dig deeper, corroborate with other tools, and most importantly, understand the underlying businesses. Okay, now that we know what the PE ratio is and its limitations, let's review the next tool, the PEG ratio. The PEG ratio will help us overcome the PE ratio's limitations. The PEG ratio is a valuation tool that was popularized by one of the greatest investment gurus of our time, Peter Lynch, the author of One Up on Wall Street and the former manager of Fidelity Magellan Fund. The price to earnings growth ratio, or PEG, is an extension of the PE ratio. It integrates growth into the valuation mix, painting a fuller picture. PEG is equal to the PE ratio divided by the earnings growth rate. Let's look at an example. Say that Apple has a PE of 28 and its earnings are expected to grow 7% next year. Then, by plugging in the numbers of Apple into the formula, we see that Apple has a PEG of 4. That is, PEG equals 28, which is the PE ratio of Apple, divided by 7, which is the growth rate, equals 4. If we do the same for Microsoft, let's say that Microsoft's earnings growth rate for next year is 18%. So we plug in the numbers and we get a PEG of 1.9. That is, the PEG of Microsoft is equal to 34, which is the PE ratio, divided by 18, which is the growth rate, which gives a 1.9 PEG ratio. So when we take the growth into account, we see that Apple has a PEG of 4 and Microsoft has a PEG of 1.9. Peter Lynch believed in buying growth at a reasonable price. If a business had a PEG of less than 1, it often piqued his interest. For Peter Lynch, a PEG of 1 or less was considered very good. But the inverse was also true. Even if he loved the company prospects, a high PEG could deter him from investing. Apple and Microsoft look expensive relative to Peter Lynch's PEG of 1 screen. However, in his times, interest rates were much higher than now. I think that for quality companies, I would pay up to a PEG of 2. At a PEG of 4, I would not buy Apple. But at a PEG of 1.9, I would maybe consider buying Microsoft. However, I will need to do more detailed work on Microsoft. Always corroborate PEG insights with a broader analysis and diverse tools. After all, even Peter Lynch didn't rely on PEG alone. Next up, we tackle a valuation method adored by analysts, which is the discounted cash flow, or DCF. In essence, DCF is about valuing a company based on the cash it'll generate in the future. It's like asking, how much would I pay today for money I'll receive tomorrow? And because a dollar tomorrow is worth less than a dollar today, thanks to inflation and opportunity cost, we discount future cash flows. Let's say you could buy a machine for $500 that would produce $100 worth of cash every year. How many years would it take to recoup your investment? And how would you feel if that $100 were given to you back in 10 years from now instead of next year? DCF helps answer these questions by assigning today's value to future earnings. Consider company ABC, which is expected to generate $100 in cash next year, $90 the year after, and $70 in year 3. To make the example simple, let's say it expects to close operations for good at the end of year 3. If our discount rate is 5%, what is the stream of cash worth today? The formula is value is equal to the cash flow discounted by 1 plus the discounted rate elevated to the number of years. So basically, you're discounting the cash flow received in year 1, year 2, and year 3 back to today. In the case of ABC, it would be as follows. The value would be $100, which is next year's cash, divided by 105 plus 90 divided by 1 plus 0.05 squared, plus year 3, which is $70, divided by 1 plus 0.05 cubed. So the value will be equal to the 95.24 plus 81.63 plus 60.47. Summing the discounted values of each year gives us company's ABC's valuation, which is the value is equal to $237.34. The rate at which we discount future cash flows can dramatically impact our valuation. The discount rate represents the return we'd expect from an alternative investment with a similar risk profile. Warren Buffett uses the 10-year US Treasury bond rate as his discount rate. That is what he uses as his alternative investment. If it's good for Buffett, I'm using the same. Of course, he does adjust for risk by requiring a large margin of safety to the valuation calculated. For example, if company ABC's cash flow is coming from a government contract, I would think that it is somewhat secure revenue. So I would probably pay around 80 to 90% of the estimated value of $237.34. But if the revenues of ABC are coming from estimates of future sales, let's say that they come from cigarette sales, and we know that the client base is dying from cancer, then I would probably need a larger margin of safety, say 50%. So I would only pay up to 50% of the $237.34, or up to $118.67. Some people add an equity risk premium to their discount rate. So their discount rate would be the risk-free rate, which in our case was a 10-year Treasury rate, plus an equity risk premium. It would look something like this. The discount rate would be equal to the risk-free rate plus an equity risk premium. And the equity risk premium really depends on how risky you think the business you're evaluating is. The discount rate for ABC, let's say, is 5% for the US Treasury, plus another 5% for the riskiness. That equals a 10% discount rate. This is all examples, so it really is kind of subjective. However, I like to keep it simple and do it like Warren Buffett. Use the 10-year US Treasury rate as the discount rate and just ask for a larger discount or margin of safety. If there is more uncertainty to the earnings, a larger discount rate. If you have more certain earnings, then I could probably live with a smaller discount or a smaller margin of safety. Summing up, DCF asks, how much should I stash away today to match future cash. This is how most rational investors calculate the value of the businesses they're investing in. The two key variables are the cash flow projections and the discount rate. The three tools we reviewed, PE ratios, PEG ratios, and DCFs, are very useful and aid judgment, but they don't replace it. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks for watching. Remember to always be compounding. See you in the next video. Take care.